Big news on the injury front. Dallas Stars captain Jamie Benn suffers a collapsed lung and will be out at least 4 weeks. What does that mean for an already slim left wing group? Roster cuts and moves continue to be made, and a power play that's a work in progress.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Welcome to a late night edition of Locked On Stars, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We have so much to get into on today's show, including the breaking news last week. Jamie Benn suffered a collapsed lung on Tuesday night in that 3-2 overtime win over the Minnesota Wild and will be out at least 4 weeks. The first big blow injury-wise to the Dallas Stars during training camp, an already slim left-wing group we've talked about over the summer and coming into this season takes a major hit. And how is that going to affect the Dallas Stars opening night roster? We'll get into that as more roster moves have been made over the weekend. And Stars Thoughts, Robert Tiffin put out an article on a power play that continues to be a work in progress and what we can expect to see from Glenn Gulletson and Neil Graham in 2025 and, of course, 26 as well. So let's jump right in to the Jamie Benn news. And normally I would not have thought this was going to be as big of a deal maybe a couple of years ago when you had Marchment and Dodonov, who could at least slide up the lineup. But after the departures of Dodonov and Marchment, this is significant news to the Dallas Stars. And maybe it'll be a blessing in disguise. Some younger guys can make an impression and make an impact and possibly make the opening night roster. But he's out 4 weeks. More than likely, it feels like he isn't going to return until beginning of November, maybe middle of November, hopefully before Thanksgiving break. But he suffered that collapsed lung, Jim Nill said, in the last exhibition game against Minnesota. Of course, this was last Tuesday, late in the third period. Jamie took a hit that collapsed his lung. Stars GM Jim Nill said Thursday he will be reevaluated after 4 weeks. He can't fly for 4 weeks, but we do expect a full recovery. First off, I want to send well wishes to Jamie Benn in a speedy recovery. I can imagine that's a bit frightening and scary as well. I didn't see the collision or hit in that preseason game specifically that may have caused the issue, but Nill said Benn went to the bench and said he didn't feel good after a late shift. The trauma doctors x-rayed him at the AAC and found a hole in his lung. He went to Parkland Hospital for observation and they decided on surgery. That, first off, it is really, really scary. So I'm glad he was taken care of. Great work by the doctors there at the AAC. There's a reason they have them there. Recall, even maybe more than 20 years ago, that was not the case. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually probably more recent than we think that doctors are actually placed there. So great job by the medical staff to take care of him. And it is nice that he's going to make a full recovery. But this does affect Dallas. I think there was real thoughts of Jamie Benn playing in your top six, whether that was going to be with Duchesne and Sagan. Perhaps he plays with Wyatt still. Maybe they throw him with Bork, right? I think he was going to be a pretty important piece, especially early on for Glenn Gulletson. The leadership aspect, I think, really is big here. He is still the Dallas Stars captain. And with this new transition of Gulletson and a new coaching staff outside of Nazardine, of course, Ben could lead the charge on the ice, off the ice, sending that message. The report, the relationship with Gulletson, I bet Golitzin was relying heavily on Ben to help send the message, to help deliver the message, whether that's physically on the ice, whether that's verbally inside the dressing room. So that aspect, I think, is going to have an impact on the Stars. Whatever you think of Jamie Benn as a player at this point in his career, right? He's 36. He certainly still is the heartbeat of the Stars, at least in my opinion. He still is the heartbeat for Dallas, and that leadership cannot be filled in the dressing room via one guy. But the good thing is they do have a lot of veterans, right? They have Duchesne, they have Sagan, Miro's a veteran. I think he can step up, be a leader. Mikko Rantanen. So these guys now really have to step up. Now, it affects Dallas just on the ice as well because, well, that's one less body. And now Sam Steele is your second line center. And that is not ideal. I love Sam Steele, but that's not ideal. Oscar Beck has to move up. Nathan Bastian now was a guy we were talking about. Well, maybe he's battling with Blackwell for some games here and there. Now he is fully inserted in he is your 12th guy. Actually, more like your 11th forward now. Not a 12 or 13th. He's more like your 11th. Blackwell becomes your 12th. And now it does lead to the opportunity for some younger players to actually make this roster. This sort of goes back to the conversation we had for a large chunk of the summer before they added Bastian and Faksa. What about a Ritskovian? What about an R2 Hoover who looked really good the other night in the last preseason game? There's only 2 preseason games remaining this season, and it looks like after the moves made today, which we'll get to, there are 3 guys that are sort of fighting to be that 13th forward. Now your bottom 6 really does become skating, not skating, more of a physical. Your fourth line especially is physical energy, spend more time away from your D zone more than anything. You're not going to get a lot of score. Like the Stars may have tough time scoring, especially if their big guns aren't executing. It can be pretty tough in a hurry. And it's not like, Jamie Benn, you were filling him in or penciling him in for, 25, 30 goals, but he's still going to be a pretty key cog this year with some of the departures. And you were going to need him to maybe refine some form and try to squeeze out whatever juice he has left in those legs. So you're looking at a left winger. Now it's Robertson. And there is a pretty big gap between Robertson and Steele. And then you have Oscar Beck and Bastian. So now Beck is going to be asked to elevate. He's going to have to play in a higher role. I am curious. I know Blackwell's 32, but Blackwell has in the past played up in the lineup. We talked about this a couple years ago when they signed him last summer, I suppose. In New York, he played with Panarin a bit. He played on a more scoring line than a bottom 6 role. So maybe there's an opportunity for him to jump. Now Maverick Bourque really needs to have a big year. And he looked really good the other night in the preseason game, which is really good to see. He seems more comfortable and the confidence, right? Just confidence with the puck. The Stars can weather this storm. They can. I think they will, but it could be a bit of a roller coaster, which probably should be expected. It's the Dallas Stars. They like to keep things entertaining. They can weather the storm because of Maverick Bourque and the step he should take this season. I feel it coming. I have the inclination this is going to be a big year for 22. They will be able to weather the storm because of guys like Maverick Bourque, Sam Steele especially. I love Sam Steele, and I know he ideally on a championship roster, a Stanley Cup champion, he's at most your fringe third-line winger, third-line center. I think that's fair to say. Ideally, you want to be on your fourth line. It's a great, great piece. But he has shown the ability in the past. He can score. I think you can ask 15, 20 goals out of him this year. Let's say 15, sort of around that range. And he's going to get an opportunity now to step up and play with with a Duchesne, more than likely, with even a Wyatt Johnston. That opportunity is going to come. You can move Bork around, whether that's wing center, Johnston as well. But your bottom six is certainly going to be, I think, or your fourth line especially, like that's going to be checking physicality line. And for the most part, there's going to be some guys that are playing in uncomfortable spots. I think that's for certain. And the good news is they have enough, I think, guys that are versatile enough to get the job done. It may not look pretty at times, and there may be a lot of line shuffling, especially early on, to figure out combinations. But it really is a big blow in a lot of ways. Maybe not as big of a blow if we knew this 3 months ago, but with sort of how the Stars roster was taking shape, you're like, okay, this stinks, of course, but I think they can weather it. It's going to be tough. But they're going to have to ask guys to play in some uncomfortable positions. It feels like to me, and it will. And maybe that's okay. Maybe this is a blessing for Dallas, because now you can be like, okay, Bork, like we're going to find out if you're going to make the jump. We're going to really find out if you've improved. And speaking of those three names I mentioned that we thought were basically just penciled in to be in the AHL after this, now really fighting for position after the roster moves made over the weekend. Let's talk about that and how the Stars roster is becoming more clear with just a couple of preseason games remaining. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets just to use across the app. FanDuel is awesome because it allows you to bet however you like. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game even more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup over the weekend. It's college football, it's NFL, it's MLB. You got the postseason about to occur. You have NHL about to kick up as well. It's quick, it's easy. It adds some more energy to your day, whether that's Sundays and you're watching football or Saturday. And of course, every single day, all the sports that are going on, you can be in on the action. So you're ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel to place your first $5 bet. The Dallas Stars announced these roster moves over the weekend. A large chunk of players have been loaned back to Texas, released from ATO, or released from their PTO. So we're going to go all through these as well, just to give you an idea. So loaned to Texas, you have Arcuri, Tristan Bertucci, Justin Ertl, Emil Hemming, Ben Cross, Christian Kyrou, Mac Donnell, Martino, Punnett, Scott, Simonoff, Trey Taylor, Tiefensee, and Gavin White. Released from the ATO, you had Tommy Bergslund, Sean Chisholm, Aiden Hershuk, Artem Schlein. And then released from the PTO, you had Becker, you had Bibu, you had Haynes, Carew, Luft, Curtis McKenzie, and Caleb Piercing. Now, there was some waivers or players that were put up on waivers as well. Kyle Capobianco, Cole Lind, and Antonio Stranges. So those are three players that are put up on waivers. If they do clear, they will go to Texas. And they were three key pieces to the Texas Stars last year. And that means a couple of things. Probably means they weren't seriously they weren't seriously fighting for a roster spot or competing for one. So that is something you can take note out of them being put on waivers. So we'll see if they clear, but if not, they will return to Texas. And as I said, those are some pretty key pieces. So we'll see how that all shakes out in the next couple of days. But really, it's the players that are still on the roster that is pretty intriguing. So you have the 16 forwards, you have 8 defensemen and 3 goalies. So you still have a couple of cuts to make to knock it down to the 23 man roster. But the 3 names that are still in camp and going to be essentially fighting for that 13th spot. Artur Huru, Justin Ritzkovian, and Adam Ernie. Ernie has, I think, done a lot of good for himself this camp. He's strong. I think he's more physical than a Huru or Ritzkovian. I'm intrigued with Ritzkovian because with Jamie Benn especially now out, it feels like you're gonna need some help scoring wise, and Ritzkovian fits that profile more than Ernie or maybe even Artur Huru. Ernie, he is 30 years of age. He came over from the Red Wings. He played for the Hartford Wolfpack last season. He again more of a bottom six grinder physicality guy. Ritzkovian, on the other hand, can provide some more offensive pop, and why I think he's probably going to have an edge over some others, and he's had a better camp. And he's just, I think, had a better overall preseason than the other two. Ritzkovian, of course, he was signed out of the NCAAs a couple years ago. He did play 5 NHL games last year. He had 60 points in 67 games for the Texas Stars in the AHL, including 22 goals. The Stars, I think, are going to need some of that. Whatever he can give them, I think they're going to want. Huru, I really enjoyed last year. He was a guy that I would have, I think coming into the year, I think I'm on the record of saying, I really like him, and I could see him, getting some action. Of course, he played 5 NHL games as well when the Stars ran into some injury issues. And I think Blackwell, at 32, you don't want Blackwell playing. I don't think you want Blackwell playing 70 games. I really don't. You're going to want to give him some rest, keep him fresh, because he does have that energy. Maybe I'm selling him short too. Maybe that's unfair because I do like Blackwell. But I think ideally, if you can give him some rest and you can throw in some guys with fresh legs, this is why I think this may be a blessing. Get some younger guys and some new blood in there, can give you a pep. Guys are going to work hard. Huru last year, 49 points, 24 goals in 67 games with the Texas Stars last year. So Huru and Ritzkovian are more of your contributing or productive types, I should say. Ernie has looked good. I have liked his game. He has shown some skill in there. He does have experience. He's 30. So I would think he is more your safe, reliable option than maybe Ritzkovian or Huru, who are still young. But as we've seen in the past, these young guys, like they come in, they get it. They get it. They're confident. They know how to play the proper way. And I think if you're Dallas, you're going to give the edge to a Huru or Ritzkovian, if you ask me. On Stars Thoughts, Robert Tiffin says Ritzkovian appears to him at least to have a tiny lead in the race, but these decisions can sometimes involve a lot of factors. And this is a great point, like who benefits more from playing regularly in the NHL versus getting scratched in Texas, or even whose salary might help Dallas get closer to the salary cap ceiling before putting Jamie Benn on the LTIR. So it can get a bit complicated. Says here, he was at Goldson was asked about Huru. He said, I thought through camp, he's gotten better and better. I thought last night was even his strongest game, just with all the penalty kills and even the offense he created. You could see he's getting a little bit more comfortable, even today. I look at the little things, look at today's practice. He had a good practice. He looked sharp today. So there is going to be a real fight. When it talks about who's going to benefit more from playing the AHL versus being scratched, it's curious to me. That's a tough one. Huru was undrafted, right? He's 24. Ritzkovian, he's 24. Ernie's 30. So, of course, when you look at Ernie, you think, well, he's 30. He maybe, fits better as a guy that you can keep in the press box more often than not, right? I think right. When you talk about, when you frame it from that way, that seems like he would be more beneficial as a guy that's, a press box scratch than playing every day. But when you lose a guy like Ben, who I think, ideally you're hoping was going to give you some offense this year, if you can replace that with the Ritzkovian, who I really like, he's a left shot too. I think that helps. Ernie is a left shot. Kruger's righty, so that may complicate some things too. So it's really fascinating. But those three guys really have to keep an eye on these next two preseason games. They're going to be huge, and I think ultimately decide who's going to make the opening night roster. So that is something to keep an eye on with the Ben injury and now these roster moves that have been made. So we touched on some of that. Thank you to Robert Tiffin. As always, I did want to touch on something else he talked about in this article specifically in the power play and a work in progress and what we continue to know and continue to see throughout training camp. So we'll do that in just a moment. So I've said I think it's time that Thomas Harley takes over as the quarterback on the number one power play for Dallas. And it's not a knock against Miro Heiskanen at all. I just believe Harley as a shooter and goal scoring threat will benefit Dallas more than Miro at this point. And Miro, we know, can rack up the points on the power play. He did a couple of years ago. He is still a fantastic player. He is the Stars' best player, but I think the Stars benefit more from Harley on the power play than Miro at this point, just based off how they play the game. They play the game differently, and that's good. The Stars don't want two Miros. They don't want two Harleys. They're great at what they do. They have different skill sets, and I would love to see Harley sort of take over the reins. But we've seen some more units at practice the other day. Miro Heiskanen was running the top power play with Rantanen, Robertson, Hinton, Johnston, while Harley was back running the second unit, a group that saw Steele drawing in for Ben, of course, and then Sagan, Duchesne, and Bork were on that as well. Bork with the power play goal the other night. Golitzin said, I'm sure we'll continue to see both QBs get looks here. Of course, that road hockey approach that Golitzin has. He said after practice, basically you're trying to create looks and then let them make plays. That's what you're trying to do. Put the opposition in a position where they have one or two options, and then just let them make a play. Now with Steele, that's fascinating. It makes sense with Ben now out. Steele would kind of check in. I remember every once in a while you'd see him on there. I know in garbage time or games are out of hand, you would see him, but I feel like every so often they would kind of throw Steele on the power play under DeBoer if they were really struggling. I think sometimes he would get some looks. Steele, I think, is actually not a terrible option just because of his speed. He can help on entries. He is a left shot. So I think he can pair well with a guy like Duchesne for the most part. I feel like he does a lot of his work kind of from the right side, especially upon entries. He carries in. He's more of a playmaker. Steele can be your net front guy too, especially if he's replacing Ben. I think he can succeed in a role like that if you had to put him net front. So it looks like he's going to get a shot there. And it says last year, this is from Stars Thoughts, Steele only had 13 minutes of power play time across the 79 games last season. But if he's ever going to become a double-digit goal scorer in Dallas, this year would seem like the chance to do so. And that's sort of where I was going with earlier. I think he could get 15 goals. And now in a spot where they may need him to do that, or at least they may need him to score here. 15 goals, I think, is right on the table. So I'm really looking forward to still getting this chance and seeing how it all sort of plays out. I think the Stars are in a decent spot to handle this. At least it's not Jason Robertson, right? And I don't want to diminish the impact of losing Jamie Benn, but I don't think we came in here thinking Jamie was even going to, we like, hopefully in a phenomenal world, he was going to sniff around 20. Like just based off what we saw towards the end of last year, he's not getting any younger. If he was sniffing around 20 goals, like that'd be awesome because he had 16 last year, and his numbers have slowly dipped, dating back to a couple years ago. They've slowly dipped. So if he even gave you 16, you'd be like, okay, that's pretty decent. Chipped in a bit on the power play. Well, now it's time for Steele, who's a bit younger, to get that opportunity and fill that to fill that void. Of course, a totally different player than Jamie Benn, but he's going to have a shot to play some big minutes now. So this is going to be a real chore, I think, early on, just because it came a little bit late here in camp. They do have a couple preseason games, which is really good, just to kind of go out there. Maybe on their final preseason game against Colorado on the 4th, at home, they'll put together a lineup that pretty much resembles opening night, just so they can get a taste of some of these line combinations, because it is kind of late, and now you're going to have to try to mix some things on the fly, and you're going to have some guys playing, I think, in some uncomfortable roles and playing with some guys they haven't played with before, they don't have a ton of minutes with. So Goldson's going to have his work cut out for him. And it's going to be massive that the Stars figure out some sort of stability just going into opening night, just to have a really, really strong idea, have a plan, right? An approach. I think more important than anything. It doesn't all have to click right away, but they need to go in with a mindset and I think an approach. This is how we're going to attack it. That way we're ready, because this first month and a half is going to be really important for Dallas. They're playing really good teams. We've talked about it. And Ben, I mean, best case scenario, I think first week of November is best case. Remember, 4 weeks. This is from last Tuesday, so the 23rd. So Tuesday would be the first week, second, third, fourth. So, I think best case Halloween-ish. That's best case. And hopefully he recovers well, and he's fully ready to rock and roll. But then I think you also have to take him into account, sort of ramping up again. Ben's older. He's not going to come back as quickly as he has in years past to some injuries. When you're younger, it's easier to deal with an injury. You can get back on the rehab process and all that. And Ben's 36. This isn't going to be easy just for him to walk on and you're like, okay, he's playing well again. They're probably going to have to ease his way back in. So that's also something to factor in. So ideally, you're probably not ideally, keep overusing that word, but realistically, you're probably not getting a fully, I guess, healthy Jamie Benn sort of in mid-season form until Thanksgiving is how I would kind of see it. After he's reevaluated, maybe he's good to go, maybe he's not. Maybe it's a couple of weeks, but then once he starts to ramp, probably going to need 15 games, and then until he's back to shape. And you also have to factor in a collapsed line. He can't work out. This isn't something where he can run and keep the legs moving, right? Like some upper body injuries where guys can continue to stay fresh, they can skate at least. This isn't that. Obviously, with a collapsed line, he can't be doing much. So I think you're not looking till Thanksgiving that you're going to fully functioning Jamie Benn. So very, very, very big blow to Dallas here. The first big one on the injury front. So wanted to hop on here, discuss that. Couple crazy travel days getting back here to Corpus. So apologize for the last couple episodes at the end of the week, but wanted to get this one out there, and we'll be back sort of a normal schedule here for the upcoming weeks. So thank you as always for the love and support. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. Kick off Monday on a high note, and we'll see you on the next episode. So long, Stars fans.